All right, what's up? We're live. I can invite my man Karlis. Okay, cool. All right, hello. Hey Steve, how's it going, brother? Just inviting a good friend of mine. How do we work this? Ah, yeah, here we go. Hey David, how's the energy?
Good, good. Hello, all watching. Yeah, actually quite good. Now I'm in this bit of chill mode as I went running
Yeah,
earlier this morning. And those who, let's say, have worked me and those who know how I look at exercise, they know that for me, it's all about efficiency, so to say. And so I don't necessarily start running like a madman right off the bat as I leave the house,
uh-huh.
but sooner or later I'm gonna be running like the tiger, that's just
Yes.
chasing the prey. Uh,
Yeah, I've run a few times, and I think during lockdown last year, and yeah, you just build that endurance, right? So I used to not be able to run like 1 kilometer, but I can run 10K quite easy now.
Really?
But yeah, like you say, it's just that building of that muscle. But it's just beautiful, man, where you start seeing that growth and you just putting in the work. But yeah, I love, obviously, we've flowed a few times, but introduce yourself to the everyone knows who I am, but yeah, like introduce yourself. Like, who are you? What is it that you do? And how do you help people?
Yeah, so hello everyone watching. My name is Karlis. I'm essentially a holistic health coach for men. I help people with stress management and I help people overcome burnout so they essentially can have more time and do more. And how I see it is that I see that health is basically the most important thing in the life because, and with health, I don't necessarily mean just physical health. That's where the holistic aspect comes in, that there's also health of the mind, health of the heart, health of our souls, health of our whole being, because I believe that it's a whole being, we're a whole being, and we should be looked as whole. So therefore, I see that our health in turn allows us to not only do more physically, but do more mentally, to heal ourselves, to be more loving, to be more open, and to give more to the world. And it gives me such a joy when I'm able to help lift this weight of stress that people carry nowadays. Because I've been there. I've been in a situation where I was so stressed and so burned out that I couldn't sleep anymore. Even though I was completely exhausted and the only thing I wanted to do was just get away from everybody and sleep and just isolate myself, I was
Yeah,
so stressed I couldn't even sleep anymore. So I know how it is. And I know how, not just from my own experience, but also I've learned a lot about human biology, about psychology, about human behaviors, even anthropology, and I very well know how stress affects us. And it's just, oh boy, stress puts us in such a survival and fear-based mindset,
yeah,
and it really cuts us. It cuts off any growth, any healing, any rejuvenation, any creative processes. It all just cuts off.
yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm here to do. That's why I'm here to help people to recognize these things, to learn those things, to overcome, and
Mhm.
essentially be able to move along in their path in their life.
Beautiful. The one thing that flowed through what you just expressed is stress, right? And you mentioned your story here and there. Do you want to just give the viewers like a bit about your backstory? Like, how has stress been a part of your life, and how is it that you can show people that stress isn't really what it's meant to be, right? Which is just the thought, which is just stressful thoughts, right? But yeah, explain your whole background, and you know, what made you become a holistic health coach? You know, just looking at all areas of mind, body, soul. Yeah, just feel free to flow on that.
Thank you, thank you. And I could, funnily enough, about this topic, I could just talk for an hour, 2 hours, because there are so many things that happen, but I'll keep it very short. In short, I tell this joke to, let's say, to other people, and I've told this joke plenty of times, is that if limiting and crippling beliefs was like a collectible card game, you know, I would really be at the grandmaster level, you know, I would have the like the fullest deck and the rarest deck, and you basically any crippling and limiting belief you can think of, I had it, you know, feeling like you're not good enough, check, not loving myself, feeling like I'm not worthy for love, for good, for anything good, like I don't deserve it, fear of failure, fear of success, and essentially feeling like I have nothing to be proud of in my life, nothing, and feeling like I don't even deserve anything good in my life. Whew. So I've let's say swam in very dark parts in my life, and you know, back a bit about my backstory is that one of the first big things that happened that impacted my life and how it went is that my parents divorced when I was very young, about 3 or 4 years. So I don't remember my parents being together ever. And it essentially, you know, I pretty much grew up without a father figure, without a masculine figure, and it caused a lot of insecurity in myself. It caused a lot of fear and feelings that I'm weak, that I'm not strong enough. And on top of that, when I was growing up, there was a lot of, let's say, difficulty in my relationship with my mother as well. You know, I understand that she has also gone through a lot in her life, and she has experienced a lot of stresses, a lot of traumas too. And the interesting thing is that we as kids, we inevitably and we automatically take stress and psychological stress and trauma from our parents, whether we want it or not. We just simply absorb our environment as kids. So I absorbed it very much like that. And it made me a very closed off person. It made me feeling very lonely, very isolated, even yeah, even to the point of, yeah, as I was saying, all these beliefs, and it just was going down, 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 down. But one of the things that have been my saving grace is that I don't give up. I've always been, first of all, I don't I don't give up in the terms of when life happens, and I've always tried to look for solutions. I've always been curious, okay, how can I solve this? How can I grow? How can I heal? I've always asked these questions. And I believe that being this state, so to say, this like mind and spirit of curiosity and asking questions is extremely important, because if you don't ask questions, you don't get answers, you know. And a lot of people, and I see that a lot of people, they're living, you know, let's say difficult situations or experiencing suffering, but they don't ask questions how they can get out of it. So they don't get out of it. But you have to ask, okay, how can I do it? How can I do it? You have to ask for help. You have to ask for these things. And only when we ask is when we're given. And so one of the things that really helped me was that for about 8 years, I played badminton. By the end of it, it was quite semi-professionally, in the sense that basically every day I played badminton. So it was either practice, or on weekends it was competitions. And it kind of, let's say, it helped me to spark greater interest in my health over time, because I wanted to improve my performance. And back then I didn't realize that because I had shitty diet, and I also had a lot of, let's say, psychological stress, that impacted my performance. I didn't know back then. Back then I thought, oh, you know, it only depended on how much I trained, you know, and how much time I spent working out. But now I know that for food, nutrition, the sleep, rest plays such a big role, which again kind of comes together of the whole holistic aspect, is that everything comes together. And just over time, by learning about myself and learning about these things, slowly but surely, one another, I began to realize more, to see more, and to understand my own psychology and the programming of the psychology and how it works, and learning about human psychology. And yeah, it led me to this point here, you know, just like, just bit by bit, just bit by bit by bit by bit. And now I'm
Yeah.
in a point where, now that I've finally done so much inner work, I'm like,
Mm.
okay, now I can give more to the world. I can finally be in a position where I'm like, okay, not only do I can, but it gives me one of the greatest fulfillment and happiness to help others attune and achieve essentially that happiness. So now it's like, yeah, let's make the world a better place.
Cool. You touched on a lot, right?
Yeah,
What you went through, and then the next part is like your thoughts, and then the stress, and then everything coming to where it is right now, right? But the thing that really spoke to me was layers. We all are born right into this world. We have no layers, right? We're in the space where we're kids and we're learning things, and we go through all these different situations that happen. We start to think with the mind, and then what happens after that is like, okay, we think that we're our thoughts. We think that we're this person. Like, I think I'm Kanji, you think you're Karlis, and then it comes to the point where all these layers just start stacking on each other, and then it comes to a point where you think you're that person. Like, especially during my teenage years as well, I can definitely resonate with you. It's like you would be, or you would feel as though that's you, right?
yeah.
You'd put on a jumper that you thought that was Kanji or Carla's, and you put on this jumper, and you're like, hey, this is me. Like, I'm wearing this jumper right now. But then what happens is you realize that you're not that jumper anymore, and then you break free of that jumper. So for you, man, like, obviously seeing the layers, what do you feel like was something that shifted for you, like the biggest awakening that you had, to break free from those layers, realizing what the layers were?
Uh, Good question. And before I get to that, I just want to quickly touch on the layers aspect. And it is very true. And I feel that life, in a way, it's like a spiral that continues itself, but goes deeper and it goes further. It's like a spiral in the sense, and how I mean by that is that in high school, I like I was very deep down insecure, right? But I built this very cool kind of appearance. I was this cool dude. I had friends. I was having good relationships with my peers and so on. And I was this nice and cool guy. And I thought, hey, this is who I am. I am this awesome person. Oh yeah. And then the first time, let's say, but it was all kind of built on unstable ground. So eventually it all crumbled and
Mm.
and I crushed down into the pits of, let's say, despair.
Yeah.
And then what I did is that I healed those things and I worked on this and again climbed out of that hole slowly. It was painful and long process, but this desire to never give up, desire to be free of these limitations, to be happy, desire to be finally at peace, it's just what kept me going, right? An interesting thing is that as I was healing that and I climbed out of the hole, I thought, okay, now I got it all. Now I know it all. And then life is like, nope, spiral again. And again, I realized, oh, wait, there's an even bigger hole that I'm in. Oh, wow, it's another layer. So it's really funny with the layers. And
Mm.
it is really true is that we build so much layers and layers and layers.
Mm.
And even I have to be honest, like, and I have to be humble here. Is that before I thought it was a couple of years ago when I already healed a lot of those things. And I thought, hey, finally I have it. I finally have it all
Mm.
figured out.
Got
I
it.
finally have it worked out. And it's like, nope, still layers there, still layers, still layers, still layers. So on that regard, it would be a bit difficult for me to give one thing, as I believe
Okay.
all things, let's say every single event essentially perpetuated the next event and the next event and just
Mm.
small things that we take together. Though one notable experience that I have to say is that it happened about 2 years ago. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's about 2 years ago
Yep.
when I had an ayahuasca ceremony.
Right.
And
Yep.
oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I mean, it was amazing in
Mm.
terms of what it gave me and it wasn't just that, but it kind of, let's say, it helped me to see from a new perspective and start a new, let's say, journey on the things that and recognizing more things that I needed to work on. So eventually it wasn't just, hey, going to ayahuasca ceremony, coming back, boom, new person done, but it's a long process that continues. But it was definitely one of those times, something similar to in the movie Matrix, when the
Oh,
Neo, let's say, realizes that, oh, this is the matrix that I'm living in, you know, and that was a very, very powerful spiritual experience for me. And that kind of, again, helped me to realize like, oh, wow, there's so much more. There's so much more to this, to what we
Yes.
can just see,
Mm.
perceive, you know. I like this, I really enjoyed the quote from Morpheus that he says, you know, that he asks, what is real? Is it what you
Yeah.
can feel, see, touch? You know, if it's just that, it's just electrical signals, you know,
Yes.
by your brain, interpreted by your brain. And I'm like, yeah, in a way that is, because everything is just, you know, these signals that our brain
Yeah.
interprets, and it creates the vision, it creates a picture in our mind and hearing. So it's funny. And that's just, I love these things and exploring these things.
Yeah. Like coming back to the Matrix, right? It's like that red and blue pill, and then he's like, "Oh, do you want to take the red pill and find what happens when you take the red pill and go down this rabbit hole and you just those layers, the spiral, and that whole
Yeah.
journey." Or you can just go back to what it is, right? But once you've taken, or once you realize with your awareness of where you're actually at and why it was presented to you, like for example, the ayahuasca, ceremony was presented to you, right? It comes to a point you can't go back. There's like no chance in hell that you can actually go back to what it is that you were, right? With the same level of awareness, if you were to go back to who you were or what you were a few years ago, it wouldn't be the same. It would be a different experience, right? So that's
Mhm.
exactly the same. It's like, going through life, there are these layers, but there's always that one path. There's that one path to, when you're born and then when you die, right? You're going
Yeah.
through that one. But sometimes we just make things a little bit more complicated than what it seems to be. And then when you really look at it, it's like, oh, wow, like, I have all these thoughts, I have all these things, like I'm going through this, and, this journey is such a beautiful journey. And you're just really enjoying the movie, just like The Matrix. You're just enjoying the movie, you're enjoying the rabbit hole, you're enjoying the spiral. And the one thing that you said that was profound was like, when we think we got it, right? So our mind loves to catch on to certain things. It's like, okay, I know this concept now. I understand it. Like psychologically, I understand it. But once you understand it, then something hits you in the back, or gives you like a sucker punch or something like that. And then you wake up again. You wake up and you're like, oh, well, I was actually thinking that. Like, really? And then it comes to that point. So my question to you, man, is like, obviously going through this whole route of spirituality, awakening, and the beautiful ayahuasca ceremony, because, even for myself, I haven't experienced something as that as yet because it hasn't been presented to me. Um, but for you, like, for anyone that's feeling, anyone that's feeling as though like they aren't in tune with their health, like, what is something that you can do or you can say through your insights and your experience that can help them? Right?
Mm, well, the first thing that I want to say when it comes to, that's something that I'm going to say that I'm sure that we both know and we both agree, is that walking the path and also healing yourself and growing, it's not always pleasant, it's not always easy, and it's not always all sunshine and
Oh yeah,
rainbows.
100%.
It can often be a very painful process, a very painful process, especially, let's say, the healing part. Because what happens is that, when trauma happens, we close up and we kind of just, let's say, hold on to this pain that's happened to us, and it doesn't matter. It can happen, let's say, a day ago, a year ago, or 20 years ago. If it has happened, this trauma, and we're holding on, we're going to hold on. And letting go of this trauma, it is a painful process. It is. I wish it wasn't, but it's just the way how it is, though at the end of the day it's worth it 100%, every single bit.
Yep.
And when it comes to, let's say, stress, I see that one of the biggest aspects nowadays is the overstimulation of things, overstimulation of information, of substances, of activities. The thing is that when it comes to our DNA and gene composition,
Mm-hmm.
we as humans, we don't really differ much from humans about 30,000 years ago. Like, okay, our consciousness has grown, and let's say our awareness has grown, yes, but it comes from like a gene, DNA point of view, we're kind of still the same humans in that
Yep.
sense. And where do I want to go with this? What I want to go with this is that back even 100 years, there was so much less stimulation And here's the thing, that nowadays I see a lot of psychological problems, a lot of stress we experience, a lot of, let's say, these difficulties come from the fact that we are overstimulated. You know, we start our, let's say, one of the common things, how people start their day, coffee or tea. And
Yes.
I don't want to, let's say, well, in the end, there's nothing bad against it, but when it comes daily habit, it's a stimulation. So one of the first things you do, you already stimulate your brain. You stimulate, you stimulate, you stimulate, and constantly it's that stimulation, and it causes overwhelm essentially, because we don't tune out. We as a society, we're taught to consume more, to buy more, to stimulate more, to constantly occupy our minds. Technology is growing, everything's moving so fast and faster, and we are encouraged to follow these principles. But we are not really encouraged as much to let go of these things, spend more time in nature by ourselves, go on for walks in nature. Let's say, spend more time in silence and just without any music, spend more time self-reflecting and bringing that awareness internally. You know, we are taught to put our attention and awareness outside of ourselves, on the job, on everything outside of us, but we're not taught to bring the awareness back inside. And I believe that once we let's say, bring back the awareness more internally and focus on ourselves and give ourselves the attention that we deserve, the care that we deserve, the love that we deserve, I believe that is a big, big game changer. Is that it really shifts those things, you know. As just one more thing, and now I want you to continue and add on to this, is that it's funny is that we as adults, it's so easy for us to give our time to external things, whether that be friends, family, business, work, activities, and so on. It's easy for us to give our attention internally, let's say even YouTube, social media, these things. But my question is, okay, but why aren't we giving as much attention to ourselves? We give our time to everybody else, we give attention to everybody else, but why don't we give the attention and the energy and the time and investment into the person that matters the most, which is us?
Yes. That's powerful, man. Thank you for sharing and expressing that. Like, you know, one thing that stood out to me was the whole feeling about, you know, just expressing like what's out there or attending to what's out there rather than inside. And really, it's giving yourself space. When you really look at it, it's like you're giving yourself space. It's you know, you're meditating, you go into nature, you're being one with yourself, you're being one with the universe of God. You're really giving yourself that space to be in the awareness that you are, right? And the overstimulation, the stress, and you know, you're just being reactive to certain things that are outside. It's like we're not that. We're not the overstimulation. We're not everything that's out there, but we're everything inside. So to your point, it's like, yeah, why not focus on us? Why not focus inside? Why not be one with nature? Why not be one with the universe and God? In the space when we're feeling as though that we're always present and in this present moment. And when you really look at everything for what it really is, like, it's just a reflection. It's just a reflection on how you feel inside. Like, you know, I was flowing on a call before, you know, one of the ones, and I was just explaining that the last 7 days, if you really look at your last 7 days, right, it's pretty similar. Like, not much has changed. Maybe like one or two things here and there. There may be some synchronicities. There may be some organizations or orchestrations, right? But everything was so divine that you experienced all those 7 days so perfectly to the point that you can't you can't even explain what just happened. You can't explain the last 7 days. And you know, when you really look back, it's like, okay, like I'm having all these thoughts right now. Like we have like 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts every single day, right? And every thought allows you to feel into a certain reality. So imagine the thoughts that you're having from yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. 95% of those thoughts are regurgitated and repeated. So if you're living the same day every single day without realizing you're living the same day, look at your thoughts. Look at what exactly your inner dialogue is. Like, what are you telling yourself? And to your point, it's like, look inside. Like, feel what it is inside that allows you to shift that reality or to change what it is that you are in this moment, because this moment is all we have. Like right now is the only moment that we have. And when you can really be that awareness and that presence, you're just in it. You're just in it. You're flowing. Like on the chat, we're just flowing. Like I don't even know what I'm gonna say next, but I'm just gonna here and
But
there. And
it doesn't matter of
exactly.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And here I just wanted to add is that I see it very well ties in with our, let's say, conscious and subconscious, because also only about 5% of our daily, let's say, what we do every day is conscious activity. And here's what I mean with only 5% is that, let's say, many basic activities, like, for example, going to work, going to bathroom, doing some other things, we've done it so much, we do it subconsciously. That means that we do these activities, but we don't think about it. You know, when I go to the toilet, I don't have to think about the mechanical actions I need to do to take care of my business, right? It happens automatically. And that's what I mean, is that generally we as conscious, I see that we are like this little soul in this driver's seat, machinery this big meat machine. That's how I look at human body. It's like a big meat machine, right? And it just like, it does what it's programmed to do, you know? And our programming, the subconscious programming, is what runs all the whole business. It runs the whole thoughts. And so therefore, in order to change something, one way is that a very ineffective way, and a way that I believe is essentially doesn't bring results, is to try to do this from our willpower. You know, we're taught, use our willpower, just do it, push through it, and we can do it for some amount of time, yes. But it creates a lot of internal conflict because there is internal programming that says one thing, and we're trying to push against it. We're pushing against it, and it creates a lot of conflict. It essentially consumes a lot of our energy. And here's the thing about willpower. Willpower is actually not unlimited. Every day we have a certain limit of willpower that we can use. And then, you know, and I'm sure like all of us have been in a situation where we wanted to do something, maybe where we were retired, or it doesn't matter what the situation was, but we wanted to do something, but we were like, oh, I just can't make myself do it. And that just means that we have run out of our willpower for the day. You know, we have to, it's a very limited resource. Of course, it can be trained. We can train and increase the amount of willpower we have. But essentially, where I want to go with this is at the limited resource every day. So therefore, in order to really make the changes, the long-lasting changes, it's not about using our willpower to push against our subconscious. It's about going deep within, changing the subconscious programming, and then it just takes us automatically. It just takes us automatically to the places we were to go. And then we can use the willpower for something else, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. It really reminds me of, like, you know how psychology and therapy doesn't really work, because it's like you have positive thoughts, right? And then you have negative thoughts. But if you're trying to flood, let's say it's like a blocked drain, right? And this blocked drain has all these negative programmings in this drain. It's like blocked up. You can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
And so, like, trying to flood all these positive thoughts into the drain, or trying to let it flow in the drain, what will happen is that everything that you're trying to flood with, you'll still continue to have those negative thoughts. So like when you're trying to replace a positive thought with a negative thought, you're essentially having a fight with yourself. It's like you're slapping yourself, or you're punching yourself, or you're having a boxing match with yourself, right? And that's the power that we have, is that we can step away from that and witness those programmings, because we aren't the program. We're the one operating that program, which is beautiful, because we are we are the driver of that meat machine. We are the driver as the soul to, you know, move in this world. And it's just beautiful to be able to see that and share this with people who aren't aware or not ready just as yet, but, you know, are slowly learning. It's because that this awareness will allow you to see what is really out there. And it's truth, right? Like, they don't teach us this in any part of our life, but we have to come to these experiences and these realizations, whether it's through our own suffering and pain, just like how you and I have both come to terms with, you know, we went through our own experience and our own journey to come to this point. Or you could get mentors that show you this, and, you know, it's for you to really awaken, because I always say this, you know when you're going on a trip, right, Carlos? It's like, let's say you're going, I don't know, where's your favorite place? Where's your favorite place to go? Like one place.
I have a lot of favorite places, but one of them is a lake nearby. There's a little lake nearby with a forest, and I go there quite frequently for water.
Okay, awesome. So let's say that you go to this lake, right? And this lake is your frequent place, right? You go there all the time, and you're always there. You're always going there. It's literally how it is when we're in the space. It's like that plane ride or that lake. You were in the vibration or you were in the energy for you to experience it, right? It's not the fact that you would choose, you chose to go to the lake. It's because you felt in the energy. You felt as though you wanted to go to the lake. That's why you're at the lake. That's why the lake was presented to you. Just like with any business trip or any trip in general, right? Like, for example, one of my favorite places to go is New Zealand and also Bali and Korea. So if I had to choose one, it would be Bali. So
Nice.
be in Bali, right? For me, so 2 years ago, I went to 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I went to Bali, and sorry, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I went to Bali, and I went to Bali, but I was in the energy of Bali before I went to Bali. That's why the trip was presented to me. Just like with any road trip I go on, I'm in that energy first. That's why I receive it. And it comes down to the point, if you shift your mindset and you can see those subconscious programmings, and with the awareness, with practice, and with routines, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit as well, because you mentioned as well, which is powerful. Once you realize and aware of that, you can start moving towards a better way to reprogram this, and the mind and everything. So on that note, man, with regards to routine, like how important is a routine, and what is it that you do in your routine? I know pretty much what you do, but like, share with the viewers, like, what is it that you do with your routine and how does it help you? Yeah.
Are you spying on me, Kenji? If you see, do you have cameras placed in, just watching, like,
yeah,
like, as you're in Australia and I'm here in Austria and we have 8 hours difference, like you have cameras there and you're like watching me sleep, like, Carlos is sleeping so peacefully. I want to talk on routines, but before I want to quickly, because I know some people may be asking, okay, how do you change the programming? And I want to quickly teach something for all the viewers here, is that first is we have to recognize what is that we want to change. In order to do that, there are various introspection techniques. What I like to use is essentially unrestricted journaling. What I mean by that is I'm going to start writing. I'm going to ask questions to myself in writing, but I don't think about what I write about, in a sense that when thought comes to my mind, just write it, just write it, just write it. And the point is to be non-judgmental, accepting of yourself. Everything is okay. You don't have to, just be honest with yourself as much as you can. And first is realizing what we have to change. Because oftentimes we go around, we're like, okay, I don't even know what's there, like the cause of it, the true cause of it. So we have to ask questions. And what I've used is just asking questions to go deeper and deeper and deeper. For example, why do I feel like that? You have an answer. Okay, but why is that? Okay, but why is that? What caused that? And going deeper and then getting to the point. Usually people arrive to, let's say, a certain event in the past that happened. Usually they arrive at a certain event. Oftentimes it caused them trauma. They realized, oh, you know what? When I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, something, there was an interaction, let's say one of my parents or something happened, and there was a pain. And that moment was like something happened. I was like, from that moment, we built up this defense mechanism. We built up this shield in order to protect ourselves because we felt pain. It's all natural. We all do that, but going deeper and asking for the cause. And then once we realize it, it's time to change it. And how we can change it, there are essentially two ways. And those two ways, again, come from the way how children learn. Is that in the sense that one thing children do is repeat. And repetition is a way how we learn, by repetition, by repetition, by repetition. And that works too, though it's a bit of a lengthier process. And another way is that for children up until about age 7 or 8, their brainwave frequencies are, let's say, are lower than the average human brainwave frequencies. They haven't really developed this analytical mind. So therefore children generally are more curious, they're more inquisitive, they're learning things, they're absorbing information, and then they haven't really developed this analytical mind that we have as grown-ups. And this analytical mind develops afterwards. Once the children have learned, they create the analytical mind as a basically like a gate between the conscious and the subconscious. And this analytical mind is constantly observing information that comes in. So, and it basically checks if the information that we receive matches with our programming. If it matches, it's like, okay, cool. It matches, we accept it. If the information doesn't, let's say, match with our programming, and even in the sense that, let's say, when we believe we're not good enough, that I believed, even when I was getting signs or, let's say, events that would say I am good enough, my analytical brain was like, no, we believe we're not good enough, so therefore that doesn't count, you know. And even though it's kind of paradoxical, you want to feel good, but you have this programming and it stops you from feeling good, doesn't matter what you do. So therefore, in order to go past this analytical mind, we essentially have to lower our brainwave frequency. So therefore, things like meditation, but even being in a state of very, very deep relaxation, of deep peace, for example, putting on a very soothing music, very soothing, and that, or maybe going through some meditation music, maybe guided meditation music, that helps us to lower our brainwave frequencies. We basically we sink down below the analytical mind, this threshold, and there it's so much easier to change the programming, because subconscious, it can only accept. You know, once we give a programming, once we change, subconscious always accepts. It doesn't think for itself. It just, it's like we're the boss. The subconscious is like, okay, boss, I do what you tell me to do. But you have to go through that analytical mind, which is the gate. So that's a technique that I've used plenty of times. And the interesting thing about this is that there have been plenty of times in my life when throughout the day I recognized, oh, I'm living still with this kind of trauma, with this kind of programming. I recognized what was the causes, and in one evening, I changed it. And in one evening, you can change it too. Every single person can change some programming in one evening. And next morning, the funny thing is you wake up and it's like you've done it. It's like basically the same effect, even better, I would say, as doing, let's say, affirmations for 60 or whatever days, as people say, or habit, because you've actually changed the subconscious programming like that. And it can happen very quickly if we use the right techniques. And this is a very quick insight of it. Of course, I could go deeper in it, but just for the sake of quick teachings, this is how we do it. Yeah. And when it comes to routines, how I see is that the morning and the evening routines, they are important, you know, as in, you know, they're basically between sleep and wake state, you know, as in the evening. And the interesting thing about, let's say, evening and morning is that it doesn't really happen instantly, that we go from a sleep of delta waves quickly to the beta frequency, which is daily conscious. No, it happens gradually. It happens gradually in the mornings, and it happens also gradually in the evenings. About, you know, generally takes an hour to 2 hours depending on it. But so therefore in the mornings, in order to speed it up, we use stimulants. We use coffee, and coffee is something that promotes beta brainwave frequencies. So that's why you kind of quickly get up to this state. But therefore it's, you know, it can interfere with our natural ways, which is also, there's some benefits and, you know, also drawbacks to it. When it comes to the routines, is that one of the things that I do very frequently, and I believe it's very frequently, is to do some type of exercise, some type of movement. And I don't do it for an hour, let's say, even 5-10 minutes, even doing just a bit, it's already enough. This bit of exercise, bit of movement, and a bit of, it's a way of you preparing yourself for the day through your body. You know, you have slept for 8 hours or whatever, how many hours, and you're all relaxed, and you have to kind of, let's say, for example, I've learned by also looking at animals how to do it. For example, I had a cat, and every single time the cat would wake up, it would do a bit of stretching, bit of movement, and every single time before the cat would go to sleep, it would again do a bit of stretching, bit of laying down, and kind of chaining these things together. And so the bottom line, where we're going with this, is that I don't believe there is one perfect morning routine and perfect evening routine that fits for every single person, because we're all unique. We all need to have one that serves us, and that we have to have, that we have to enjoy following through. Because if we have a routine let's say that we've checked on internet, say, let's say, wake up at this, do that, do that, do that. And it works for that person. And it also, you know, some of those things can be very valuable. Yes, I don't want to say they're not valuable, but but it has to fit our lifestyle. It has to fit our beings. It has to be something that is enjoyable, something that is sustainable, and something that we can do long term. And then I believe it has the best effect. So I would suggest is to ask your body, ask yourself this kind of question. What kind of activities would benefit me in the morning? What kind of activities would benefit me in the evening? For example, one thing which is standard that benefits in the evening is it would be good at least an hour before bedtime to limit screen time and don't look at screens anymore, because there's blue light in the screens and essentially it stimulates our eyes, and it essentially doesn't allow our brains to relax, because blue light, it's you know, it's compared to sunlight in the sense that, you know, the blue spectrum, and it signals our brain that it's daytime still. So for example, I was there too when I would lay in the bed and check my phone. Yes. But it's one of the worst things you can do, honestly, for your brain. One of the worst things you can do, because you're not allowing your brain to cool down, and you're prolonging the time it needs to take to fall asleep. So, for example, what I do in the evenings is that I'm gonna be putting soothing, relaxing music. I'm gonna, you know, put all my alarms, then put my phone away. I'm gonna take a shower, have lower lights. You know, oftentimes I put a candle light because I like the kind of lighting. And the very last thing I do before going to bed is meditate. But when I meditate, I've turned out all the lights. So I just sit there in complete silence. And, you know, partially it's like a good meditation exercise, and partially it's also going more into that lower brainwave frequency. So it's so much more easier that when I do finally lay on my bed, it's very easily to drift away.
Beautiful. I love your routine, man. And one thing that you mentioned is that everyone's different. So it's a routine that works for you. So for me, like before I sleep, I journal. And, you know, for me as well, it's like I try not to look at my phone, like maybe just put my alarm on, I journal, and then after I journal, I meditate, and then I sleep. For others, it could be that they just journal. It could be that they read. It could be anything, right? But
yeah,
as long as you do something that allows you to cool down the mind so that you can feel more into those theta and delta waves, it's such a beautiful shift. It's a game changer. Because like you said, you can change your whole reality and you can change your program through those waves, through that process, right? Just like how you mentioned, it's like you could repeat the same thing, right? And it's a lengthy process, or you could literally just be aware about the program that you're in those waves, and be receptive. And the awareness itself is the change. The awareness itself, I've realized, like through my experiences, that like once I can see that thought of what it is that was stopping me. So for example, if it's like, you know, I want to make like certain amount of money in my business, or like I'm too attached to the outcome, or as though like my brain's overstimulated on what next, right? Or what if. It comes to a point where if I write that down, I can see that, like, you know, in movies, when someone's like, you know, saying, you know, certain lines on movies and, you know, dramas and things like that. But when you see the screenplay or the script, it's different, right?
yes.
Same with me. It's like I journal and I can start seeing the truth. I can see it for what it really is, which is just a thought if you really look at it, right? And then from there, you can start shifting that awareness and changing the programs and change the habits. And, you know, Dr. Joe always says, like, you know, you think, you act, and then that becomes your state of being, right? So once you change that through the awareness of seeing those thoughts, you can start acting in a different way. You can start feeling, you can start being in this new state of being. But I love your routine, man. It's just really good to touch on these aspects of health, right? Like health, stress, and I want to flow on something a little bit more global, because I know we both talked on a global scale as well as like what we want to serve back to the world. But you know, stress in general, right? I saw a stat the other day. It was like 90% of, you know, illnesses and disease is caused by stress. So 90% of all illness and disease is stress, which is a lot, right? And when you really look at stress and cancers and all that, right? Like it is psychological if you really look at it. So what are your thoughts on, you know, diseases, illnesses, stress, and yeah, feel free to flow on like the whole global level of that. Yeah.
Nice, nice. I like it, you know, and my brain is like, oh yeah, time to get some good value. Is that stress? Here's the thing. One of the most surest, most guaranteed ways for sickness, 100% guaranteed, is chronic long-term stress.
Mm,
Guaranteed. Guaranteed sickness, guaranteed. I can guarantee that. For the simple reason that we, as human beings, we are not adapted to be sustained, to
right.
sustain a long-term stress. In fact,
Yeah.
nothing living in nature is adapted to sustain long-term chronic stress. Because why? The simple reason is that when we are in a state of stress,
Mm,
it essentially triggers our like very primal nervous system, essentially the fight or flight nervous system, and essentially it puts us into survival mode. And these
mm,
things happens automatically. We cannot no longer, where we put in a state of stress, where we put in a state of survival, we cannot really overpower with our conscious mind anymore
mm.
because it's hormones, it's instincts, and it takes over the whole machine.
Yeah.
And if you look at nature, the default state of everything in nature is peace and rest. Even predators, if you look at savanna, you look at lions, still most of the day they spend in peace. They spend resting.
Mm,
Every single living being in the world, you know, except humans nowadays, which is funny. But if you look at nature, all the animals and beings, they spend most of their time in peace and rest, because when we're in a state of peace and rest, our body can essentially use energy to rejuvenate ourselves.
mm,
They can use energy to heal ourselves, to cleanse ourselves.
mm,
But when we're in a state of survival, in our minds, and here's the interesting thing about our minds and brains and threats, is that for our brain and for our biology, it doesn't matter if a threat is real or if it's a perceived threat. It doesn't matter.
mm.
Same kind of hormones.
Yeah.
And so that means that even though we don't, let's say, when we go out of the house, we don't have to fear that the lion's going to jump out of the woods. Well, not from the woods, but jump out of us and eat us. We find other things to be stressed about. We find,
Yeah.
okay, about money, this is issue, something might happen, something bad will happen. It's, even though it's a different kind of, let's say, threat, and it's more of a perceived threat, it can have essentially the same impact on our hormones and on our biology. And what that means is when we're in a state of stress, the hormones mean that send energy to our extremities, to our arms and to our legs. Because when we're in a state of survival, we have to either fight or run. That's what we have to do when we're in a state of survival. We don't, in the state of survival, no, there's no time for creativity. There's no time for learning. And that's why also memory is drastically lowered in a state of stress. Memory is just because it's not important anymore. So
Mm,
let's say, because it comes from evolutionary times, is that, let's say, if you're being chased by a lion, doesn't matter what are you learning right now, doesn't matter if there's a viral infection in you, doesn't matter if you have some bruises, doesn't matter if you have some inflammation, doesn't matter what else happens if you're dead after 5 minutes. So that's
mm,
why you need to use all your energy to get away from this threat. And when you've gotten away from this lion, when you're
mm,
finally in a state of, okay, oh, I can be peaceful now, then it's time to learn, then it's time to heal, then it's time to deal with different viruses, different infections.
mm,
And what I dislike when I look at the world and things how it's going in the world is that obviously this last year and a half up to 2 years, there have been a lot of uncertainties, right? And uncertainty naturally creates stress because any uncertainty is potentially dangerous, and it naturally just creates more stress in our lives. And what I dislike is that people are not taught that stress lowers their immunity. You know, if people are afraid of getting sick or getting the virus, the more they're afraid of it, the more they're stressed, the bigger the
mm,
chance they're actually going to get sick, because they're lowering their immune system, they're
mm.
lowering their own health, they're lowering their own defenses. And I look at a lot of this information nowadays, and I'm like, either those who give information, either they're oblivious to the fact that by stressing people out, you're doing them harm, or they know and they continue doing that. So in that case, they're like, I don't want to curse, but let's say I dislike the way that they treat people.
And if you
So
want to, yeah,
yeah,
you can, brother.
well, I can be classy. I don't have to lower myself to their level. And here's one of the biggest aspects that I want to add is how important peace and rest is for our health and immunity. And here's the thing, let's say when it comes to like, I don't want to go much like into politics and so on, but let's say when it comes to vaccine, is that I'm like, I don't need that because I take care of my own health, I take care of my own immunity, I know how to take care of it, and therefore, and also because it's experimental, quite experimental, I'm like, I don't need that. I take care, I know how to take care of my own immunity, and I believe, I've no doubt that my immunity is strong enough to deal with that. And but again, if people are in a state of fear, they're in a state of stress, their immunity is lowered, they get sicker, they get more stressed, they get more agitated, and it all just impacts their performance, impacts their mood, impacts their well-being. And here's one more thing before I'm gonna give you the word, is that when stress has already been created in our body, we have to use it. That's the thing. We have to use it when stress has been already, we cannot really, it doesn't really go away by that, you know, because stress is generally physical energy. Therefore, I suggest, and also I do that, when I'm stressed, I'm going to do something physical. So either go for a walk, either do some push-ups, do some squats, do something, you know. Sometimes when I've, it's funny, you know, sometimes when I'm, let's say, when something has angered me a lot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get super angry and just going to be doing push-ups and be like, you know, I'm going to be doing with, and pushing this anger, and that's why you should use it. Use this energy for something physical. Use it. And it's good to use this energy. And, you know, people are taught, oh, you shouldn't display your anger or but, you know, I believe that every emotion is valuable. Every emotion has its needs, has its purpose, and we should use into this energy and channel it. The other day, I was teaching a technique on also how to release stress, is that you essentially, you close your eyes, you channel it, you imagine the situation, you get the stress, you channel it, and then you squeeze yourself, you squeeze your arms, you squeeze your core, and you're just like, you squeeze it just as much as you can, for as long as you can. And then by the end of it, when you can no longer hold it, you're gonna release it, release this energy, and then just take a couple of deep breaths. Deep breath in, let it go, a couple of deep breaths in, and it already, you know, by squeezing, you're using this energy, and then by taking a couple of these deep breaths, you're essentially cooling down your nervous system again.
Yeah.
And it's something, and it's quick ways for you to again get to the state of peace. And then when we're in a state of peace, we can find creative solutions to problems, to difficulties. We can come from new aspects, we can learn, we can do better. And it just makes the whole thing easier. Like, I know, in the sense of, I've lived my life a lot of years just keeping stress in. And for a long time, I ignored that. I was like, stress, just bottle that thing behind us. Just bottle in my brain, just bottle in my mind, and don't acknowledge it. I was like, I was ignoring it. Now I recognize that how impactful it was. Back then I thought, oh no, it wasn't that bad. But when I get to the point, as I was saying, when I was so stressed, I couldn't sleep anymore. Then it was like, oh shit, now it's bad. Now it's really bad. But it helped me to learn, and now my goal is to help people not reach the same point I was. No, it's not pleasant. So yeah, that's in short about stress.
Awesome, man. You know, the one thing that stood out to me was like you can't create in a state of survival and the fight and flight, right? And I think we talked about it last time. It was like when you're walking, when you're moving, it's like you can't be in that fight, right? You can't be, you know, in a state of fight when you're flying, right? So when you're moving, it's like it's the quickest way to snap you out of that feeling. And what you said about like just everything, like the 1.5 years that we've experienced, you know, these uncertainty, you know, uncertain times, this uncertainty, it's like, where's your attention at? It's like where your attention goes, your energy flows, right? And you know, having
Exactly.
those emotions, you know, that stress, that anger, the uncertainty, it's like all that emotion, that energy in motion is stuck inside you. And like it's, you know, the more that you feel it, the more that you see it, it comes to that point. It feels as though like, you know, there is no cure, right? And like you said, like the vaccine, you know, there's always like all these things with vaccines and stuff, but it's like how people perceive it. If it's going to be a topic where they see the topic and then they're like, oh, like I'm going to put more energy in that. That's what's going to happen. More stress, more uncertainty, more anger, because you're putting that intention and attention on that as well. But yeah, beautiful, man. One thing before we sign off, and I'll probably ask you this question. You know, we talked about a lot of global things just before.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you want to create in this world before your time is up? So this is a really profound question, because like I know this will go into many different ways. But what is one thing that you want to create before your time is up?
There are so many things that I want to create of, but actually something that I was thinking about today, this morning
Hmm.
actually, before this call, and I think to be sharing there, is that I'd actually like to have like a radio show, something like that, like a podcast type of radio show, because I know that people, you know, in the mornings they'd like to listen to radio, they like to listen to podcasts, and I was thinking is that why not give something good? You know,
Hmm.
why not give some kind of, that's something that I'd like to create, you know, maybe, but it's still in the idea phase, so I don't have it any fleshed out. But an idea like that, having like a radio show every morning, for example, for an hour, where we exactly talk about these types of things, also play some music there, share some good knowledge, share some good energy.
Yeah.
And I believe that is something that the world needs. More
Hmm.
people that show their compassion to the world, more people that show their love and their care. And, you know, some people, let's say, there is this like coming from an older mentality, some people might say, oh, you know, like weakness is compassion, and you know, like, oh, you got to be strong, be macho, be strong. But I believe in fact that showing compassion and kindness to others, it's actually one of the greatest strengths that we have, you know,
Yeah.
showing that we are, yeah, that the love that we give to others. And I believe that's something that the world needs right now. So that's something that I'd like to create. And also, let's say, having it on a Friday evening, like a more like a radio, like a party more, you know, like talking about conscious topics, but at the same time blasting some cool music for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
party, you know?
I
Something
can,
like that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Beautiful, brother.
What
I
about
can,
you? What about you?
yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I want to see a better world, right? Like, I'm really about like empowering leaders and, you know, allowing people to be their best version of themselves. I'm very much a connector. I like to connect with people. I like to collaborate. I like to be in the space where I'm in the energy, right? And, you know, sharing this energy and sharing peace and sharing love and sharing, you know, freedom. Like freedom of choice is something that we were all born with, but we forget during that time, and then just giving that back. So, you know,
Yeah.
connecting with people and, you know, just showing them that they are their best version. It's just that, you know, like you said, there's so many different layers, right? And it's just beautiful to be on the forefront. Like we're actually doing it. Like if you really look at it, we're actually doing it. Um,
Exactly. It's so
it's just
cool. It's so cool that you. So, sorry that I'm just quickly, but I just quickly just want to say that I find it so cool that we get to inspire people. Like
yeah,
being able to inspire others, I just find it so cool and so amazing, and it just it brings me so much happiness when I get to do that. When I get to when I get to see people think like, hey, you know, I actually want to do more. I want to do something cool too. I want to be better. I want to grow. I want to be happier. When I can inspire that, I'm like, yes. So yeah, please continue.
yeah. So I don't think there's any questions, but if there's any questions, pop them through.
I don't
Um,
see any, no.
but
What
yeah, where can all the viewers find you, man? Like where can they find you? Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, Instagram and Facebook, Karlis Pupols. It's basically just like that. And here's something that I want to ask for the audience, everybody watching, is that would you like something like that more, that we do something like that? If you would you like us, would you like me and Kenji to have more talks to share more value? If you like that, you know, just let us know. And I'm down for that. And I'm sure Kenji is also down for just sharing more value.
Yeah, 100%. On that note, thank you for your time, and I really appreciate you, man. You know, when we first connected, I knew that this would be something special, but yeah, I look forward to, you know, the next episodes and, you know, what this would unfold, because like you know, when we really look at things, we don't know what's going to happen. We really enjoy the ride, you know, enjoy the movie, you know, just eat the popcorn. So thank
Yeah.
you for the video as well, and thank you for your time, and we'll catch you all very soon.
Yes, thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Luke. I see you joining too.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for all your time today with us. Very appreciated. And we'll speak soon.
Yeah. All right. Catch you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.